Welcome to Persons of Interest. My name is Derek Dockett. When I first started this podcast, the intent was to share stories of people that would hopefully provide some inspiration to others. The background of my guest in this episode checks that box. He's the first in his family to make it to college, and when he got there, he had to figure things out. In the process of figuring it all out, he found things in life that he was passionate about: fraternity, sports, and education. Well, my guest in this podcast is Tommy Lynch. He's currently an admissions coordinator at Indiana State University. Tommy, thanks so much for being on. How are things going for you?
Eric, thanks for having me. Really excited to be on today. Things are good. I think, like with a lot of us are in the adjustment of the working remotely or working from home phase. So still kind of figuring out what that looks like. But other than that, yeah, things are going good. Like I said, excited to be on with you today.
Awesome. Well, like I said, we don't want to dig too much into the coronavirus stuff, but it's glad to catch up with somebody because just like everyone else, I've been confined to the house, working from home. But we bumped into each other just recently at Arch Madness. I was walking on the concourse heading to track down a buddy in the Missouri State section, and lo and behold, come around the corner, there you were. It's like, hey, that's right. We got to figure out a time to do that podcast. So seemed no time like the current. So to get started, if you can, I gave you the preface at the beginning there, but tell the folks about yourself and now just what you do for a living now, because your background is more than just what you do. But I found it intriguing because most recently I saw video and pictures of you awarding Indiana State scholarship and admittance letter to high school students. So you have a pretty unique job there, serving a university that you care so dearly about.
Yeah, so I currently serve as an admissions counselor at Indiana State University. Indiana State's where I got both my undergrad and my graduate degree from. So 6-year student. In my role in admissions, I'm the traveling representative. So I travel, my territory has been central southern Illinois. So everything about I-74 all the way down to the St. Louis area. But I'm the guy on the road that's visiting high schools, going to the fairs, trying to spark that interest with the soon to be graduates and just kind of sharing the good word about Indiana State. So, and the videos you saw, kind of the other duties as assigned portion of my job. With Indiana State, we offer our full ride presidential scholarship, where we award anywhere between about 12 to 20 or so students a full ride opportunity to come to Indiana State for 4 years.
Awesome.
And so I had the chance to travel to 2 of our local high schools to award the recipients who were caught off guard, had no idea that we were coming. But we had a chance to make it really special, connected with their family, their high school staff, some of their teachers that nominated them, and basically just kind of had a surprise announcement with the students. So I had the chance to go to those schools and offer those letters and kind of share that they had been selected for the award. And for one of the high schools we went to, our media team followed and kind of shot a teaser for social media of us offering the student and then, getting that raw reaction of, I'm potentially going to college for free. So that was definitely a top 5 experience for me in this role with admissions.
And I got to imagine it's something pretty special for the student as well, finding out news like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So how often do you get to travel and have those experiences? Is that a common thing that you do? You say you're at the fairs, the high school college visits, things like that. How frequently are you on the road doing that now?
Yeah, so our kind of peak travel season is more in the fall.
Okay.
So with the fall semester, institutions, the new freshmen are kind of getting settled on campus. So we're out talking to the new high school seniors in that college decision. So the fall is really our travel peak time. In the springtime, we do not quite as busy travel, but we're going to some sophomore and junior fairs as they're kind of beginning that conversation. So fall's dedicated to those seniors that should be applying, not making the decision, but getting those apps out and kind of moving forward. Then the springtime, it's a little more sporadic, but we try to keep in touch with some of those underclassmen that are stepping into that senior role soon to be.
So when I was in high school, I don't know if I've ever talked to anybody about I know I've talked to a few of our high school kids in the school district where I work about it, but my process of landing in college was not a unique one, and not the way I would tell high school students to start their college career. I literally did it at the last minute and did all the placement tests all the last minute kind of thing. Is it still the norm that by the time you're a junior, late in your junior year, that or do you still see high school seniors that first semester making up their mind? What's the typical process that you guys see for the high schoolers deciding on where they want to go to college?
Yeah, I would say for my experience, looking at that fall semester, high school senior, the college applications are going live. And
okay.
I would say that, kind of off the top of my head, it's 50-50 between those students that have narrowed down that list and are applying to those top 2 or top 3, maybe top 5 institutions. Then you equally kind of got those students that, maybe are considering college late in the game. And so they're kind of new to the research and what that looks like for them. You have a handful of students that are getting applications and kind of seeing where the interest is or isn't for them. But I would say, really by that fall of your senior year, as the applications go live, a majority of students, I would say, at least have an idea, maybe not have a decision, based off of decisions they get from institutions, but a lot of them at least have somewhat of a plan of what they're looking for. And so being able to work with that's really where, I come into the picture.
So I got to know, when you were a student at Indiana State, you probably have to be Mr. Indiana State, knowing everything I know that you know. Besides what the obvious topic we're going to get into, did you have any other campus jobs or anything else that you did at Indiana State that sort of fostered your level of pride in Indiana State? Or was it just one of those things where in high school, or did you have family that went to Indiana State? What was your connection that made it so deep to this day for you for Indiana State?
That's really a fun question to kind of go back and think about. I'm a first generation college student, so I really didn't have any family that went to college, let alone Indiana State. This is the part where I share that I'm from French Lick, Indiana. So I would say that's the connection to Indiana State, kind of idolizing a different alum of the institution. Really for me, I think back to my freshman year, again, going off that first generation perspective of, my father was big on, we didn't, they didn't go to college. We're going to get you there. We don't know how, we don't know why, but you're going to go, you're going to get out of French Lick and go somewhere. And, when I first made it to Indiana State, I can really remember that, like, I'm here and it's really exciting, and you're that, on campus your first day. But then, once classes started and reality kind of set in, I can remember the being overwhelmed and, kind of having that, well, I'm here, but like, now what am I doing? What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I came in not knowing what I wanted to study. But I felt a lot of pressure that you have to check a box. You can't go to college and not know what to study. So when you graduate with 52 people in your high school, the only career that you're exposed to are your teachers and what your parents do.
Yeah.
And my dad drives a semi. He said, I'm not allowed to do that. And my mom worked in the hospitals, and I don't like the sight of blood, so I can't do that either. So I came in as a freshman, kind of checked the education box. Maybe I'll go back and, be a football or a basketball coach. And I think I went to calculus class twice. And I called my dad on that Friday and said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here, but this isn't working out. So I share all that to say that, this pride I had for ISU definitely wasn't a day one experience. But for me, really the turning point was getting out of that program that was putting a lot of stress. I was able to get in a more exploratory program to kind of, see what it was I really wanted to do. But as far as jobs and activities, the real turning point for me was applying to become an RA. So working in the residence halls, I became an RA my second year. That kind of gave me that first sense of connection with ISU. I was starting to get to know some people on campus. I rushed a fraternity my freshman year, and so that was kind of a turning point as well. And then the other big piece my freshman year was, and I imagine this will be a common topic, but actually Arch Madness 2011. Big sports
2011
fan.
of all years too.
Right. Yeah. Good year to be a Sycamore.
Bad year to be a Bear, mind you, too.
I wasn't going to bring it up. I was just going to share my experience. But yeah, I had a couple of fraternity brothers. They were both seniors, I think, if I remember. And it was kind of a last second, we're going to this basketball tournament. Do you want to go? And I said, of course. I can remember thinking, being from Indiana, it's Big Ten culture. So when I think of like Big Ten tournament, that's the one you see on TV. Sure. And you follow those programs. So I'm thinking, Missouri Valley at that time, I'm still like, is this really going to be a big deal or not? And
so you had no idea about the sports conference that Indiana State actually played sports in and going what Arch Madness was at that time. That's 2011.
Correct.
So you had no idea what 2006 was for the Valley, what 2007 Arch Madness was for the Valley. Do you right now have any idea the significance of 2006 and 2007 are for the Valley?
Those specific years, I'm drawing a blank, being put on the spot.
That's okay. Because that I find that really, really interesting, because 2006 is the year that Valley got 4 teams in the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
And 2007, at the tournament that year, was the year that they sold out the building at Arch Madness.
Okay.
I didn't know the semifinals had 22,000 people at Savage Center. I don't even know what the building was named at that time, but
right.
So that's interesting to me that your first time going is 2011, which is actually my first year. My first Arch Madness as a staff member. I've been going to Arch Madness every year since 99 ish, and 2011 was my first year working Arch Madness as a staff person. So sure. All that a tangent. That I find that interesting that your first year going is 2011. So I'll let you continue on now.
Yeah, so made the trip down. Again, just a sports fan. At this time, I really didn't have that complete investment at ISU. I definitely was making the most of it, but to where I am now, there's a long gap in between there. But we went down. We played Evansville that Friday night. And I can remember the Friday night game. Odom hits the game winner. Okay, this is pretty cool. We're winning a game. We're sticking around. I was kind of following their lead. They had been to the tournament before. They said you just book a hotel for one night. It's typically not the norm. That this isn't a whole weekend ordeal. I kind of found that odd, but they know what they're doing. So here we are trying to scrounge around, find somewhere to stay. Friday. No, we went down Friday night. So we got Saturday. We stayed Friday night. We won. We played on Saturday. And I think that was really what stood out to me on Saturday was we played Wichita State, who, when I think of Arch Madness with the Shockers, they were the ones that bring the crowd. Missouri State did as well that year. They were definitely a top team, but the black and gold,
yes,
definitely filled up the Scott Trade Center.
Absolutely.
So I can remember, Indiana State having, I'll be generous and say 100 people, 200 people there. And then on the other side of the arenas, thousands of Wichita State fans. And so winning that game was the night where it was, we're playing for a championship. They're just as kind of shocked as I am. So here we are kind of figuring out, where we can stay. And we're on our phones trying to text our friends and fraternity brothers of, hey, we're playing for a championship, make it down here. And championship Sunday was kind of the same experience. I think we counted 30, if I remember correctly, 33 students came down and sat in the student block for a conference championship. And the Maroon from Missouri State, you guys filled up about 80% of the arena. So, but Sycamores, taking that crown, 4th time in school history, Jake Odom's team, Lansing's first year. Yeah, that moment was really the turning point for me and what kind of became, Mr. ISU, if you want to call it.
To me, you seem like you'd be the perfect campus ambassador, like the tour guide or something like that, because I feel like you would know any and everything that I'd need to know about Indiana State. So that surprised me that you started as an RA and were in a fraternity. But of course, I guess your Arch Madness experience sort of hooked you in. And I see you're wearing a shirt there. And that leads me to my next topic is how the student section known as the Forest came along in your role in how that got going.
Yeah, I tell everyone that that championship Sunday, us winning the tournament was the day the Forest was created, and so I can remember the Wichita experience, the Missouri State, seeing those numbers, and really just knowing as a general sports fan, really knowing what a home court environment
Yeah.
can do for a team, and I don't want to say discouraged or embarrassed or nothing, but it was kind of tough being a Sycamore fan and just being one of the few, that was down, not just the weekend, but, for that championship game. And so, that really led into, coming back my sophomore year, really getting to meet what I think are just the right people on campus. Those, again, being associated with a fraternity, being an RA, really trying to build that network on campus. I learned rather quickly that this sense of Sycamore pride, while maybe it's not the most visible experience on campus, there were a whole lot of people that, had that pride in ISU. And so for me, it was just really an idea. When the Forest was first coming together, the only thing I was trying to do was just get more students to come to games. Like, that was the big picture. If we can, fill up the lower section at the Holman Center, like, that's a success. If we can, get matching T-shirts and make us look like a true section, like, that's a win. And so really my second year was dedicated to, studying other organizations. As I was moving back to Terre Haute last year, I actually found this folder that I've kept that has the printouts that I made I researched the paint crew at Purdue, which was kind of like my Big Ten affiliation, when following those programs. I researched the Red Alert at Illinois State.
Yeah.
So trying to research something more compatible with ISU. And so I've got these printouts of like organizational structure and game, like things they do for games and how they advertise them. And so really that was my entire second year. So it was figuring out what that looks like on a college campus and really just, getting a chance to talk to every organization, student, staff member, alumni, everybody that would sit down and have a conversation with me and really tell them that, I kind of have this idea and I really want to see what we can do with it. And, obviously hoping for support, hoping people would buy into it. But I never would have imagined, the buyout or the buy-in, the support that we received with it.
So did you start all that immediately after the 2011 basketball season, going into the 2010-11, going into the 11-12 year?
So we launched the Forest the 2012-2013 season.
Okay, so you pretty much after that experience at Arch Madness, you said, this is something I'm passionate about. I want to get this going. You had the 11-12 year researching, I guess, visiting others and whatnot. And take me up to the process of this. Wow, this just may actually happen. Like, is it the very beginning of the next basketball season? Take me up to the process of you getting to that first game where you have students that are officially recognized as the Forest, because it's come a long way. Like, you got the shirt on, but I'm visualizing, I think it was the Wichita State blackout game. I don't know if that was 13 or 14.
We blacked out Creighton in 2013.
Okay,
that was McDermott's senior year.
Did you do it against Wichita as well? A Wichita home game?
Wichita, we did 2014.
Okay,
so that was 14 was their undefeated run.
Okay,
and we did the blue out. So we did the blue shirts and blue everything. We had all kinds of like blue body paint and everything that wasn't blue.
Yeah, you guys have gone all out. Now you've got a giant. I'm talking here. I should be letting you talk, but you've got a giant Forest flag that rolls out over the student section. Like, it's a huge, huge thing now that has come from your head, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was definitely just a dream of mine. Again, leaving St. Louis in 2011, and really just taking that whole second year of just is anybody on board? Is anybody willing to trust me and come together and see if we can do this? And the Forest became a true student section. I guess a true organization on campus.
Okay.
There's a student. It's a student job. It's part of our student government's executive board.
Oh, okay.
They've got a student position that's all things pride and traditions is what it's called. And so as I learned that position existed, and like with a lot of things, everything just kind of lines up to, the stars align in so many ways that I had a fraternity brother who was just elected the student body president going into 2012. And so as he was electing as committee members, I had a 25 or 30 slide PowerPoint presentation. I was going to talk about structure and game day and spirit days,
all your research,
and everything came together. And so it was the president-elect, and then he had a Senate member who was also a fraternity brother who'd been in government all 4 years, if I remember. And I think after slide 4 or slide 5, the Senate member was like, I've seen all I need to see. If you don't hire this guy, it's going to be your biggest mistake as student body president. And he got up and just walked out. And so the rest of it was, okay, you've done your research. Let's get you on board. And so it was really our student government association that gave me the leverage to build this organization, really get it going.
So it launches, you get it going. Any growing pains you'd experienced once it first got? Did you see students willing to jump on board right away? What did you see that first season of interest from students?
The interest was definitely there. I think for me, I tried to be as strategic as I could with recruiting students to get on board. So I was an RA, so I had the RA, the housing population. So I was working with them to recruit the first year students living in the halls, kind of building off of that excitement of being a new student, getting them on board. Being a Greek member, reaching out, fraternity and sorority life, trying to utilize their organizational pride and bringing that pride together in the sense of an athletic event. So, that really kind of panned out. But one of the things that I think really helped as much as anything was the fact that we had sports programs that gave the students something to get on board with, which, sometimes you have and sometimes you don't. But to have 2012, 2013, we were NIT programs. 2013, we, beat Creighton in the National Player of the Year. We held him to 7 points and beat him by like 18. And then we were tied with Wichita, I think, at the last media timeout, and they hadn't lost a game all year. So we had sports programs that were holding their own.
Sure.
Our football program went to Fargo and beat North Dakota State, which hadn't happened in Fargo in years. And so we really had these moments where, what I was trying to build and what we were trying to support was a program that was really easy for students to get on board with. So coming out and watching, high caliber programs, really competing at a high level. Growing pains wise, I think the biggest thing was just a sense of change. I think with anything we experience, something new, something different, right. There's excitement, but, there were also a lot of upperclassmen, that were kind of not interested in trying something different. They just, were used to being kind of the front row guys. There weren't a lot of students, so they could kind of show up, and that was their scene. And as we kind of rolled in and took over, there were some folks that weren't happy about that. But, we got them on board. We said, hey, we're not trying to compete with you. We're all on the same team. And so it's really just trying to have that, always recruiting and always inviting, and anybody was welcome to be a part of the Forest.
And you got coaches and other student athletes buy in as well?
We did, yeah. We had, I'm thinking for basketball games, I know our football program came out a couple of times. Track and field was really great about coming out and being a part of the physical student block at the ball games. So that was a big help too. Was a lot of the non-student athletes that I was interacting with. It was really cool to see them view our student athletes as one of their peers.
Right.
A lot of times as student athletes, you kind of see them as, oh man, that's Jake Odom, or that's, this or that player. And to have some of those athletes, a John Mascari, our runner that, all the accolades and championships that he won, to have him in the front row of the Forest, that, you see him on the newspaper, to have him cheer next to you. I think those moments were really what kind of led to kind of that cohesive all for one experience that we built.
So when you look back on your time in Indiana State and you have one visual or one moment to point to that you're like, this thing is working, this thing is going well, I can't believe this has actually gotten to this far. Is there a moment that you can point to that sort of says, I think this is going to make it, I think this thing is working?
I think as far as that moment, I think of year one, I think of that Creighton game.
Okay.
So the specific moment of that game, besides us, beating a ranked team at home, that same year we had gone to Hawaii. We had beat Miami. We had beat Ole Miss. We actually went to Wichita that year. We beat them in Wichita. So we had some big wins on our resume, but they were all away from the Holman Center. And so we had 16 or 1,700 students. Everyone was engaged. It was, the highest attended, all the energy. Was really the big payout moment. But the conversation I'll never forget was actually at the end of it. We had pulled away. It was a large margin. Game was pretty much wrapped up. And a lot of the students downstairs, they were ready to storm the court. And I used the word committee. I had a group of about 10 or 15 students that were my front row as I was doing all the behind the scenes stuff. They were at every game cheering. You don't sit down, you heckle appropriately. They were really kind of my visual leaders. And we were talking, I don't know, a minute or two left. And I said, guys, hear me out. What if we don't storm the court? And they looked at me and they said, why would we not do that? Like, we're beating Doug McDermott. We're beating 15th or 16th rate Creighton. And I said, well, think about it. I said, we've got all these wins. Everyone's paying attention to us. I said, what if we send a message as a student section and kind of just view this as just another game, just another big win for us? And they looked at each other. You could tell they weren't on board at all because, everybody wants to storm a court. And so I said, I'll leave it up to you if you storm. I said, I'm right behind you. I said, but I think the Forest could really, kind of flex our muscles if we said, no, it's just what we do. We just beat big opponents. So the game ends. They decide not to storm. Everybody's going crazy. We just won. And for me, kind of that payout moment was the players were going through the handshakes, and you could see the Indiana State players. I don't want to say they were kind of shrugging off Creighton, but they were like running through the handshake line, shaking hands because they couldn't get to the Forest fast enough. And they stormed into the Forest and was celebrating with us. So rather than us going out there,
they came to you.
You could tell the players were appreciating the work we had done. And so we had our moment there in the seats when Jake Odom and the Idol twins and those guys, came over and kind of celebrated with us. So that for me was, okay, this is something serious. Something special's happening here.
Yeah, very cool. And now in 2020, still going strong?
Yeah, it's like with everything, some growing pains is leadership coming and going. New students taking the realm. A lot of credit to Derek, who was kind of the Forest leader this year. Tons of enthusiasm. Saw a lot of really exciting things happening there. So I see the Forest kind of on it up. Things are definitely getting better. I've tried my hardest as a staff member to kind of take a step back.
I was going to say, yeah.
I definitely want to be a resource, and I love getting to have those conversations, but I try to be intentional of not, that's their organization. Sure. It's their thing now. They know I'm here. If there's anything I can do, I would give them the shirt off my back if I needed to. But at the same time, I'm that alum now watching them, have the fun that I used to have.
But still cool nonetheless to know that's something that started when you were a student. So now I gotta ask, because I don't even know this backstory. So you do your time at Indiana State, and then you go into the real world. You got to get a job, like most adults do.
Sure.
But you decide to get a job in another state, a neighboring state, at another school, also with the letters of ISU, Illinois State University. Can you take me through what you did there, how you landed there, and what your time was like as a Redbird?
Yeah. So during my time at ISU, I decided to, with my grad program going into higher education, wanting to stay on a college campus, I think of all the experiences I had and all of the staff members and folks that really kind of helped shape me, who I am now. And so really wanting to take that career path, but going through my graduate program and trying to distance myself as, young professional adult Tommy, trying to distance that, student leader Forest Tommy was pretty challenging in grad school. And so, if it was up to me, the plan going in was to never leave Terre Haute. My resume is just going to say Indiana State, and I'm, planning to be a lifer. And then, as I kind of went back to the drawing board, it was best for me to go somewhere else. I needed to get out of my comfort zone, go somewhere new. And so, yeah, I go through, the job search. I think I applied to probably 20, 25 institutions. Wanting to work in residence life was a lot of my experience. So wanting to find a residence life position. And I think of all the applications, the two that amounted to anything was Marshall University out in West Virginia and Illinois State up in Bloomington Normal. And long story short, just kind of weighing the two options and kind of going with that pride that you mentioned earlier with the Missouri Valley, that it just made sense for me to step out of my comfort zone. But there were enough pieces there where Marshall was nothing. It was a great experience getting to go out there and experience campus, but there were just no ties out there. I felt if I'd have went out there, it was just starting from square one. Whereas at Illinois State, I had Arch Madness. I was familiar with kind of some things that were going on up there. I was close enough to Terre Haute, so I'm close enough to home. Some of those important things that were important to me. And so, yeah, I decided to, join the arch rival for a couple of years, and was able to kind of, stay ISU, but switched everything from blue to red, and worked in residence life. I was there for just over 2 years.
Okay.
And it was an absolute great experience. I got to live in the residence halls, got to work with, first and second year students up there. So getting to learn Illinois State and really learn a new institution, but also be that resource for those students the way that I wanted to. And so some of those conversations of homesickness or, first generation college student and those challenges that our students face, it was fun to be challenged as a professional, helping those students with the concerns that they had. So Illinois State was great. The thing I think that I laugh about with my experience up there was I talk about my first year at Indiana State, 2011. We win Arch Madness, have the year that we did. My first year at Illinois State was the 16-17 season. So that was the payoff, Paris Lee, Tony Wills, McIntosh. That was the 17-1 record in the conference. That was supposed to be the year, and that was a real special team. They get to, even if they'll always be the rival, but to go up there and follow a team. That was a really fun season to get to buy my first ever season ticket deal. Was for Illinois State men's basketball that year. So
what did you do when Indiana State played games at Redbird Arena that particular year?
I tried to stay as neutral as I could.
Just wear Valley gear?
So I did actually.
Oh, really?
I bought, maybe not my first year. So I went to Arch Madness. It would have been the 17 season.
Okay.
And I decided to snag a Valley polo just for the sole reason that I could wear to the Indiana State Illinois State game.
Smart.
So the football game every year, both basketball matchups. That was kind of my one way to try to stay neutral and not pick sides.
There you go. So I got to imagine in a professional level that being able to get away from Indiana State and see how things are at another institution, like you said, see how things are, that's got to be able to help you professionally, I imagine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Got to learn so much about the field, the decisions that other institutions are making and the way things are done. But the biggest thing for me was really just kind of that professional identity for me, going to Illinois State and just being another new hire and really getting to kind of, establish myself in a way that I couldn't at Indiana State. And so, I learned as much about my career. Equally, I learned as much about myself and, what it was I really enjoyed doing, what I wanted to do. Now I work in admissions. One of the things I learned was I love working in residence life. It was a great opportunity, but it wasn't something I wanted to do for the long term. And so being able to, use opportunities like that to kind of navigate, what's next, what's the next thing I want to do. And that's kind of what drew me to admissions.
So you seem pretty satisfied working in higher education. If it's admissions, you've been in the res life. Do you see Or do you know where you think your future might lie? You think you might want to, eventually step some other level of administration in college administration, or, do something in a certain department. I mean, you seem to be pretty tied into the higher education professional world at this point.
Yeah, I think that at this moment, and if I'm being truthfully honest, I really don't know. I don't.
And that's
I don't know
fine.
Yeah, I don't know what that long-term plan looks for me. It looks for me, where I see myself in 5 or 10 years. But I would say right now, getting to be back in Indiana State is obviously really special for me. I'm really happy to be back home. Admissions is work that I think I get to utilize some of those strengths of getting to talk about Indiana State, which I could sit here with you and I could talk for days about things you just don't need to know about ISU. But I love getting to be that ambassador. And with admissions, the challenges that all institutions are facing with recruitment and it's exciting to get to be at the table here at Indiana State and kind of, figure out what we can do with that. So I don't know if I'll be here obviously forever, but near future, definitely happy with where I'm at, and we'll see where it goes from here.
So I know you've got another hobby that I find very, very interesting. And I don't even know how you got into it. That's probably one of the reasons why I had it on my list of topics, because I see these pictures on Facebook of you just like running through mud or running through like mud pits or who knows what. How in the world do you find these Spartan races? And am I correct in thinking that you've already sort of mapped out some races for 2020 before we hit, obviously, the pandemic that we have on our hands now and here in late March? But how in the world did you discover that this is something that you like doing and you like putting your body through?
It was never my intention to ever do any of these races.
I say someone had to drag you along, right?
That's absolutely what happened. Okay. Yeah. Again, going back to the fraternity experience, I simply had a brother reach out. 2017 it was my first summer up at Illinois State. I had a fraternity brother that kept reaching out. Hey, do this race with me. I said, you're crazy. Don't waste your time. I'm not doing it. He said, no. He said, you will love it. He said, I'll be there with you. Just do one with me. Just do one race. I said, no, there's no way. I'm never going to do this. You guys are crawling through barbed wire and carrying heavy sandbags. I said, no, thank you. And so he eventually talked me into it. We went to Fort Knox. The race was down there that summer. And yeah, we did this race. It was over 100 degrees the entire day. We were out in this like training field where they would like take us back in the woods for a little bit. And then you just come out like right under the sun. There was nothing enjoyable about this race whatsoever. So we finished, we get back home. I said, hey, I did the race. Don't ever ask me to do it again. No way. And again, I kind of go back earlier to how things just always seem to kind of line up and work out for me in my life. I run the race, and like with any organization, they send you emails of, hey, sign up for the next one. Hey, here's a sweet deal for you. Hey, here's some gear that you can buy. And one of the emails that I got was, Spartan Race offers coaching. We've got coaches that will work with you on site or work with you virtually to help you get ready for your next race. And I said, well, I'm in the middle of Illinois. There's no way. I'm thinking Chicago or St. Louis or one of the big areas. So I type in the zip code, and sure enough, there's a Spartan endorsed coach that lives in Bloomington, Illinois. And he was about 3 miles away from campus. And so I said, well, in my head, I'm still like, no, thank you. Well, but maybe. No, I'm not going to do it. Well, maybe I should give it a shot. So I reached out to this gym, got working with Coach Webb at his obstacle course gym. And if you watch like Ninja Warrior, and it shows those like montages of the gyms that they train in, that's what this guy had in Bloomington, was the walls and the ropes and the buckets and stuff. And so I got training with him. It really kind of became my disconnect from campus. Living and working in residence life, you were constantly on because you live in your building. So that was kind of my opportunity to get away from campus, and really kind of struck up a relationship with the coach, got working with him. And next thing I know, he's kind of doing the same thing of, hey, you're doing this work. just do one race with me. Just come with me. We went to Fort Benning, Georgia. He said, just do one race with me. He said, if you don't like it, he said, I'll give you your month's membership back. He said, we'll call it quits if you don't want to do it. I said, okay, I'll do one more race. But after that, I said, I don't want to do it anymore. And so really doing that second race and having him alongside and really kind of having this deeper, we ran the race, we did the obstacles, but it was very much kind of a coaching moment of, where do you see yourself doing and why are you here? What are you trying to accomplish? And, kind of having that bigger picture, like what am I looking for kind of moment. That race was fantastic. And it was really kind of leaving that second race of, there's more to this than just crawling through mud and getting, worn out and beating yourself up. So getting to meet him, getting to have someone like him in my corner is kind of what's led me to in my free time. I like to play in mud and run half marathon obstacle races for fun.
The longest one you've done has been a half?
I did one half marathon last year. So they offer, there's 3 different distances. They got the 5K, the 10K, and the half marathon. And if you do one of each distance, they give you this big medal for accomplishing what they call the trifecta.
Okay.
And so last year, the goal was to earn this trifecta medal. So we did the 5K, down in Charlotte, did the 10K up in Michigan, and then we did the half marathon was up just north of Indy. It was at an off-road park, so it was up and down these sand dunes and back in the woods and stuff. But yeah, finally got that trifecta last year.
Do they mostly occur in the spring, summer? Do they any of these in the winter? Or?
They offer them usually 11 months out of the year.
Okay.
January, they're usually don't have many races, but they're all over the world.
Okay.
So they kind of vary by region. Midwest races are usually May, June, July.
Okay.
It's kind of the summer months. So I would say May to August, September is usually kind of race season, as you'd call it, unless you're going to California or doing some extensive travel.
In your words, your own perspective of the ones that you've done, how many have you done, by the way, now?
I have completed, I'm taking a look at my medals over here on the wall. I've done about 10 to 12 races in the past 2 years.
Couple questions. First, of those ones that you've completed, which would you say was the hardest one?
When I think of the hardest one, I think back to that first race.
Okay.
I think back the heat was a big element. The concept of having no idea what I was doing, going in with no training. I think since I've really kind of taken this more serious, that half marathon was pretty challenging. My buddy that I run a lot of these races with, it was his first half marathon as well. And it really kind of, we were amped up, we were excited, we're finally here. And I think it was about mile 6 or 7, we kind of hit that wall of,
oh boy,
man, we're at the halfway point. Most of the other race we've been doing, we'd be done at this point. We're barely halfway. And so the back half of that race was challenging mentally as much as anything, of just trying to, kind of dig into another gear and getting through that course.
And you're not just running, you're going through obstacles as well. So I'm sitting here, I just got into running regular over 5K races and I'm working myself up to a 10K next. You're doing a half marathon obstacle course. So I just want to clarify that for those that might be listening, that you're not just saying we're halfway through it, but you've halfway been through climbing, running, jumping, whatever's in front of you.
And with the half marathon, one of the things that they did with that course, and I don't know, I've only ran once, I don't know if this is the norm, but a lot of the obstacles were in the back of the course. So as we hit this halfway point and we're wearing down, we've ran, so we'll say 7 miles, and we've seen 7 or 8 obstacles. And those obstacles are climbing a rope and ringing a bell, jumping over a wall. They'll put a sandbag on your shoulder and you got to walk a loop in the woods and bring it back. So we had ran about 7 miles, and then next thing we know, it was pick up this 150-pound stone and duck walk it 10 or 15 yards. And then it was climb under this barbed wire, but it was up a hill, and they had, it was all muddy. So you're swimming up the mud. And the obstacles, I think there were 32 obstacles obstacles on that course in the 13 miles that we completed.
Wow. Okay. Which one was the easiest? If that's a thing, if easy is a thing.
When I think of easy, so we did a 5K race. It was in November. It was actually up at Wrigley Field in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
So that one, from a level of difficulty, because a lot of it was kind of running the stairs, and you would get to the concourse to do some obstacles.
Not as muddy, maybe. Not
as muddy, which played a big role as well. So the lack of mud made some of the obstacles a little bit easier, but it was also just kind of if you've ever went for a run in a gym and just gone up and down stairs, the difficulty wise, that was definitely one of the easier races we had done.
And which one would you say after finishing you felt the most sense of accomplishment after?
Definitely the half marathon.
The half, okay.
Accomplishing that trifecta, that was the goal for the year. Finishing, for me, I'd have never thought I would have completed anything with the term half marathon in it, whether it's just a race or a Spartan race. I've never been much of a runner, so this is a pretty new venture for me. Finishing that half marathon, finishing the whole trifecta experience, definitely high levels of accomplishment there. Have you done just a regular 5K, 10K half marathon race? Like no obstacles involved, just a regular one? So that's actually one of the things that Illinois State holds a lot of 5K races on campus. So that was actually kind of a little piece of it too, is every fall they have the homecoming 5K. Okay. And then in the spring semesters, there was always a department. I think one year it was like the Department of Technology was doing like a fundraiser 5K. So I had ran those for a couple of years. Okay. But besides that, I wasn't doing these for fun prior to. Okay. No. Okay. So I'm just trying to frame it here where you're not just like, oh, I'm a runner, I'm doing this. It's like you were dragged along to one. You're like, why am I doing this? And then you're like, okay, I'm going to train for this and see if I can make this manageable. And now it's like, I can do this. This isn't that bad, a sense of accomplishment. So it's not like you just said, I'm a runner, here's this, and now I can transition that. You're just, I don't really have any words for it because, like I said, I just got into running about a year and a half, 2 years ago myself. And I can imagine like climbing a wall after, like I'm running, okay, now I got to do this. Like I'm thinking of the energy that it would take to get through it all. Like it doesn't sound easy at all, but I have a friend that said you'd be surprised what your body can handle when you really, really do it. And that's, as I talk to people about the races, I'm finishing these races. I'll never tell you what my times are because that's not what they're about. Exactly. But, for me, it's the idea that I think back to my first race. This is going to be so hard. I haven't trained. I don't run. For me, it was kind of just the camaraderie. A friend of mine is going to do it. So, hey, let's go see what happens. The turning point being, the relationships with the gym and the coach that I was working with. Being able to kind of take this concept of the races and breaking it down into I don't run. I wouldn't consider myself a strong person. So being able to have these fitness goals of working out, running a little bit more, building a little bit of strength, being a little more mindful of what I'm eating. I'm not going to be a poster child athlete ever, but to think of where I was in 2017 to where I am now, just some of those baby steps that I've taken have really just made a lot of changes I didn't think were possible. So that's the story I like to share is it's, there's always the podium finishers and those are the guys you see on like the magazine covers or the social media posts. And, for those guys that you're watching or girls that you're watching, there's folks like myself that, 3 years ago thought there's no way I'll ever finish a half marathon. And, I'm still not great at it, but if, the virus gives me an opportunity, I'm hoping to run one, maybe two this year if I get the chance. So nice. Final question on the Spartan racing. Is there a training regimen? Like you don't know the obstacles going into the race, do you? Or maybe you do? I don't know. For the most part, you do. Okay. So a lot of the obstacles are the same. So I could give you a list of what to expect. Okay. The half marathon, if they put 32 obstacles, I'll say the Spartan probably has 40 obstacles they can pick from. So you kind of know what they put on the races.
Okay.
You just don't know specifically for your race. So you might start the race and within a mile you're climbing a rope and then you're throwing a spear, and then you'll do the next race and that spear throw might be at mile 9 and the rope climb might not be there.
Gotcha.
So you kind of know what they have, but they mix it up race to race for that element of surprise.
So you're not necessarily saying, okay, I'm going to go do some weightlifting and do that. You're just going to attack it however you can attack it.
Yeah, there's no true plan. I've been asked, what do I need to do to start training? For me, it's as much mental as anything. Tell yourself you can do it. Get past that mental block of, man, I don't know if I can finish this race. If you go in with that block, it's going to be real challenging. But if you go in and say, hey, I'm going to give it my best shot, there's obstacles like monkey bars. For me, I kind of just go back to being a kid, swinging on monkey bars or climbing a rope, just kind of going in. And if you can go in and have fun with it, it really is an enjoyable experience. And then off of that, once you do a couple races, okay, I'm going to go out and buy a 5-gallon bucket and fill it up with sand. And I'm just going to walk around the house and carry that, 2 or 3 laps.
Build up some endurance.
That's a Spartan workout. Or I'm gonna, I've got a sandbag that I'll carry around and stuff, or even doing the simple things like a bear crawl. There's going to be a barbed wire crawl, so maybe you've got a stretch where you can do some simple movements like that. That's a Spartan workout.
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, I don't think I'm going to be doing that anytime soon. I'm going to stick with the 5K and work my way up to the 10K hopefully this year, and hopefully I get a chance to that. They got virtual races now, but I commend you. That's like I said, I see the Facebook posts in the spring and the summer. I'm like, what in the world did they do? What's going on? It's like, all right.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna be that friend. I'm gonna stay on you. I'm gonna get you to do a race sometime.
I don't think so. I don't think we'll do that. you might be working long and hard to get me to do one of those, man. Like,
we'll see.
I had to work up to the 5K thing, and I told myself this time last year that I had a goal of doing 2 5Ks. Ended up doing like 4. This year,
I saw you were doing a lot of running.
Yeah, this year I set the goal at doing 1 a month, like one actual, like registering for one. Now, of course, that's already up in the air. Sure. Actually, I have a virtual 5K I've signed up for, which I go out, I can do it with ease now. Like, believe me, I think when I first started running, I could probably run 2 miles in 30 minutes. Now, like my 5K time, which is 3.1 miles, my best time was 27:05. So I've like somehow managed to get faster, and now I'm to the point where I'm working on longer runs. Like yesterday, I did 3 3/4. Last Saturday, I did 4.5 miles. So I always try to make like one run during the week, the quote unquote long run.
Of course.
And I still want to do at least a registered, like signed up for 5K race, but I want to make at least one of those this year, a 10K. So that's the goal for 2020. So we'll see if I actually get to do that. But there's virtual runs still, so I can still sign up for one and then go out and just run it on my own and do it. So it's still possible for me to do it. But that's just the goal. Like I said, I never would have thought I could have run just 3 miles nonstop without walking and falling over and passing out. But here we are. And you're right. It is a sense of accomplishment once you do it. And there's something about race day. Like when I go out and run on my own as like the regular running workout, it's just like, all right, I did it. But when you go out and do it, and there's a start line, there's other people, that adrenaline kicks in a little bit. And then I keep track of all my times on this app called Strava, and all my 5K times are faster when it's a race versus when it's just a regular old run, which lets me know, that's race day adrenaline. I get pumped and I want to do my best and all that. So we'll see. But you're right. It is definitely a sense of accomplishment. And when you get to the finish line, my last race that I did was I got 3rd or 2nd place in my age category, and then like second in another one. And I was like, I sat down and I was like, oh, this is for me. And the guy brought it over. I was like, wow, it wasn't a huge, it was about 120 people, but I had no idea. Like I was almost certain I had people passing me. But when I got home, it was like, I finished like 10th overall. It's like, how the heck did that happen? So it's like, wow. But yeah, it does. And you're right. You feel better when you can be active and burn some of those calories and all that stuff. So,
and I think just being a general sports fan, as you and I are, that, you go out and you work out and you do your regimen, but it's fun to kind of get in that sense of, it's game day. And
yes.
You got the playlist and you've got the regimen and
the little bit of the competition in you.
Yeah, everybody's got a little competition,
right.
and I like to say I don't have much, for races and things like this. Like if someone needs help on an obstacle, I'm gonna help you get over that wall, or I'm gonna help you accomplish that obstacle. So I'm not out there trying to beat people, which I think is something else that I love about these races is the community. You've got the folks that are going out there trying to win. They're on their A game, but folks like myself, I think back to my first couple of races, not being able to climb a 7-foot wall. You try a time or two, the folks around you see that you're struggling, they stop what they're doing, they get down on a knee and they're going to propel you up over the wall, or you're trying to pick up a bucket and you're just gassed at the end of this race, so hey, let me help you get that. Or the camaraderie is really for me as much as anything.
That's awesome.
You get to feel like an athlete. I use that term with me very loosely, but you really get to feel like you put the jersey on, you got the regimen.
Yeah.
Game day.
Yep, I know. I feel you the same way. As someone that the most sports I've been around is either watching on TV or working them. Right. Yes, it's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing. So, well, speaking of, before I let you go, we've talked for almost an hour, and who knows? I didn't expect that to happen, but I gotta ask after. The cancellation of NCAA tournament now, but we did get at least a quote-unquote full Missouri Valley Conference season completed with Arch Madness and things like that. Before Arch Madness, Sycamores had a pretty good year, finishing third. Your sort of thoughts on how the Sycamores were this year?
It was, overall, I thought there were a lot of positives this year. We definitely didn't end it the way that we should have. I think that anybody that follows the season, was aware that Missouri State was playing really good basketball. Even though it was a 3-6 matchup, it was, it was going to be a tough matchup for sure. So nothing to take away from Missouri State, but take it away from that final game. We've got 2 young freshmen that, if they can keep doing what they're doing, Jake LaRavia and Trey Williams are going to be names that hopefully the Valley is going to be saying for a couple more years. LaRavia, just a lot of fun to watch. The skills that he brings and the talent he's got as a true freshman is just remarkable. And Tyreek Key, kind of had some up and down this year, but, still earning that first team all MVC, I think definitely well deserved. So there's a lot of pieces there. I think that, unfortunately maybe it just didn't click that final game, but, I'm extremely optimistic about next year. I think that our freshmen are only going to get better. We're losing, Jordan Barnes and Christian Williams that, played vital roles, but, I think there were a lot of positives take away this year. And I hope that, Sycamore fans that, maybe look at that last game and say, man, this whole year was, not a great year, kind of take that one game as a representative of the entire season. That's just not the case. There were a lot of things that went well. We competed with Dayton, first game of the year. We went over to, I forget what Mark Adams calls it, the Decibel Dungeon or something over in Dayton, and had a really great matchup there and competed in the Missouri Valley. So I think that, I think we'll be competitive again next year. And I think that, once everything clicks and this team gets rolling, I think they're going to be tough to beat in the next couple of years.
I will freely admit that I'm not as tuned in on Valley basketball like I used to be, but I am somewhat still tuned in, so to speak. So my interpretation was that I thought this was a year on the upside for the Sycamores as a view from the outside sort of thing. But at the same time, I think across the league, it looks like with the influx of freshmen that things are going to trend up in a lot of different ways. And a lot of that evident by what we saw in St. Louis for a number of days, because I don't think anyone would have called. It took 30 years, and we're just talking 30 years in St. Louis because the tournament is much older than 30 years. People think that Arch Madness, Missouri Valley's only had a tournament for 30 years. No, the tournament's been in St. Louis for 30 years, but it took that long for the lowest seeds to make it as far as to win games as far as they did. And then Valparaiso goes on and makes it to the championship game. Like, that is absolutely bonkers. I don't think how many people, it cannot be understated of what that really does mean. And on the other hand, it also goes to show you that what several of the prognosticators said, preseason polls mean nothing. And I'm, as a Missouri State fan here, can easily say that because the team that's been picked first and they finished sixth or third or who doesn't matter. They really don't. And I did initially think that it doesn't matter. Win 3 games in 3 days. If you're Valpo, go ahead and win 4 games in 4 days and just get to the NCAA tournament. It's sad to say that's what it comes down to for the non-BCS teams and leagues out there, because the trend now is there are fewer at-large bids to get there. And, you and I probably wasn't going to get the bid. Northern Iowa probably wasn't going to get an at-large this year because of, the way their season panned out. So that's it's sad to say that's a matter of time. That's the case that we have now, but it makes things like a conference tournament all that more exciting when the stakes are that much more higher, I guess. So
absolutely, yeah, and I've got a group that St. Louis and Arch Madness has really become our yearly kind of holiday, is what we tell people is that first weekend in March where requesting off work and booking the hotel and stuff. That for the first couple of years it was about Indiana State, and so once they were no longer playing, we might stick around. More than likely, we just come back to Terre Haute. But the last 4 or 5 years, that's just a weekend you just don't want to miss. Yeah. Just as a pure basketball fan, and I love following the Missouri Valley because there's just so much. You never know what's going to happen. Evansville going to Kentucky. I don't care who you are.
The season right there.
No one's going to predict.
Right.
You can't predict those.
Right.
I'd have never predicted 2 Thursday teams playing on Saturday, having Drake in there as well. Yeah. And they were competitive. I almost thought Drake and Valpo were going to hold down the championship. And
how wild would that have been?
to never have a what was it, a Thursday? The stat said Thursday had made it to Saturday once. I think they had beat a 2 seed, if I remember.
I think so.
But the 1 seed had.
But the 1 seed had never. Yeah, the 1 seed had never lost until this year. So go figure.
So it was.
It was a wild college basketball season all around. I mean, if you were ranked number 1, it was like, get ready to lose. I mean, if you were in the top 5, if you were top 5, it was like, well, you got there, get ready to lose because you're going to lose at some point this week. And it just happened over and over. I mean, look no further than Evansville beating North Carolina, or Evansville beating Kentucky, North Carolina having the season that they did. Yeah. I mean, going into the ACC, I think, were they the 13th seed in their conference tournament, I think?
I was going to say 12 or 13. Yeah. Evansville is going to Kentucky, SFA going to Duke.
Yes.
That was another huge, it was just everywhere. Every time you turned around, a top team was losing at home or just losing in general. And, like you said, being a highly ranked team was almost a curse this year.
Yep. And that's what sort of pains that we didn't get a tournament this year because the season was so wild. But that's why college basketball in its great form is what it is, and why hopefully the tournament doesn't take a turn for something that doesn't have the UMBCs and the Northern Iowas and Ali Farouk-Manesh and the Jake Odoms of the world, because you got to have those kinds of guys in it to make the NCAA tournament a special thing. So I don't know why I just went on that tangent, because I don't think there's enough for the NCAA tournament to do anything else that's that crazy. But us non-BCS fandom teams, we always have to sort of play that card of making sure that that's why the NCAA tournament is what it is.
Absolutely, yeah. Anytime you get a Farouk reference, it's a good conversation. It's what makes the tournament so special. So
yes, absolutely.
And if he's listening, I apologize. I don't think I said your name right. I apologize for that if he happens to hear this episode. So.
I think you're in the clear. I'm not sure he's tracked. Although he still does follow me on Twitter. I actually tweeted him when they were you probably saw the Colorado State video that they put out because it was the anniversary of the shot, Northern Iowa and Kansas. Everyone's been talking about that on social media. And I looked at it, clicked on his profile. I was like, oh, he still follows me, because now I never know who still follows me now that I don't work at the Valley. But we still send a DM here and there. But it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. Actually, I'm gonna turn it. We're talking social media, and since I've got you on the line,
yes.
One of my favorite things about social media is following your profile and what you do. There's a former professional football player.
Oh, no.
That shares a name similar to yours, and there's some username identity, I think.
Yeah.
I would love to hear a little bit about that story. I know there's some times you've interacted with some people.
Do you not know the details of that?
I don't really know the story of that, and I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah. Okay, so this goes back to... I'm going to think about 2012, maybe 13. I don't know the specific year, but this football player that played for the Arizona Cardinals is a Florida State alum by the name of Darnell Dockett. We are not related. Not on the one. His Twitter name is D Dockett, DDOCKETT. My Twitter username is DDOCKET, one T. So I'm trying to remember how I even started. The one visual that I still have in my head is sitting in the Valley conference room working one day and needing to send out a tweet for something. And I get on there and my mentions are all like, you need to get off Twitter and get back to the weight room, or you should go and check the playbook and like stop tweeting that and go do this. I was like, what in the world? And I'm like, I had no idea what any of it was about. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. So I'm clicking on profiles to see who's tweeting at me and why they're tweeting at it. And this is before Twitter had threads. You'd have to sort of do a little bit more investigation and tracking down replies and things like that. And I was sort of completely dumbfounded. Well, I sort of like let it be, sent out tweet I needed and whatnot, but it kicked up again that evening. And I remember getting on TweetDeck at home. I'm like, okay, I got to figure out what's going on. And I then saw that Darnell Dockett had, I believe he had an animal of some kind in his car and he got pulled over. And I don't know if he had like a lizard. I remember him getting pulled over for something, and it was a big thing, and it was on Twitter. And he live tweeted it, I believe, too. Like, I just got pulled over, and I've got this animal. I don't know. I have to go look it up. But that's when I realized people were getting me confused for a professional football player who got pulled over by the police. That was interaction one, though. So I thought, okay, this is a misunderstanding. It's a one-time thing. Well, it wasn't a one-time thing, because the show Dancing with the Stars, I believe, was the second one. Now, he wasn't on the show. I don't even know the specifics of this one, but I just know involved is it AJ McCarron? The quarterback.
Is that the quarterback?
Yeah.
For Bama.
Yeah. His girlfriend, they did something. Somebody was on Dancing with the Stars. Again, I don't know the whole details. All I know is he tweeted something about his girlfriend, and people were responding to it. And some of those people were not typing in the correct Twitter handle, and those tweets were coming to me. So it was like, you need to stop tweeting this about AJ McCarron's girlfriend. You need to get back in the playbook and this and that. Yeah. I saved a bunch of the tweets of people because I'm like, this is not really happening. Like, people think that I'm a football player. Like, you click on the bio, read it. Like, look at the profile picture. They're two different profile pictures. He was very, very active on Twitter, and he would sometimes just say random stuff. He didn't care. And about 3%, not even a lot, just a few of them would come my way because people would just type in the wrong Twitter handle. I don't know why. They just wouldn't hit the reply button, but they would type in the Twitter handle. Go figure. Yeah, that was a thing, and it happened a lot about that 2012, 2013-ish type of year there. And it even ended up being where I had a journalist, a writer from a newspaper in Phoenix that contacted me. She wrote a story about it too, about the mistaken Twitter identity. So that's when it really became a thing, because she published a story, which I totally was fine with it, because she DM'd me and she emailed me, and I emailed her back with some quotes, and she published this thing. So it's fine. It was lighthearted thing. It was funny. Sure. And she actually put, our two headshots next to each other. It's like, these people are not the same. And I gave her funny quotes like, I've never played a down of football in my life, not even in elementary or high school. Like, I don't get it. But hey, if they want to know anything about the Valley, I'm here for them. And we don't have football. The Missouri Valley Football Conference is a separate league, and
right.
We had some fun with it. But it added to the comedy, I guess. But yeah, that's sort of where it all sort of happened. And Darnell isn't as active on Twitter these days, but I think every once in a while I get people that will just fire back, hey Darnell, people that I know, people that I follow, that have followed me since that whole situation was going on. They get it. Right. But I gotta find it. I probably have a blog post on an old website somewhere that I archived, that I copied her news story, and I definitely saved a bunch of the tweets. I could probably go through my search history and find all those too. But yeah, the mistaken identity of Darnell Dockett and Derek Dockett definitely was a thing about, 7, 8, 9 years ago. So yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah, and it was a follower. I would see the occasional, you'd respond to some people in a pure lighthearted manner.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that.
I think that was where, as a follower, we would see some of the stuff you'd share out with responses and stuff.
Yeah,
and
I would quote tweet some of the people that were responding to me, and I would always tag it beast mode on it.
Yep.
That was the thing, because and that wasn't a Marshawn Lynch thing, because I don't even know if he was using that at that point. But it was just like it became the rallying cry for some reason of, yeah, I don't. It's so ridiculous thinking about it now, but yeah, I would quote tweet it with things that were Valley related. Sometimes, like it'd be like someone would say, "Oh, Darnell, you're the best. I hope you can send me a signed jersey." And I respond back, "Would a signed Doug Elgin bobblehead be better?" Hashtag beast mode. It's just like the Valley people would get it, think it's funny. It's like, what is this about? But the other person's like, oh, I don't, what? Who is Doug? Like it just would make, the connection would just be off the wall. So yeah, it was good times. It was good times. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm glad you could bring that up for me. Not that I did forget about it, but it hasn't been brought up in a while. So yeah.
It has been a while. You were talking 2012, 2013. That's kind of as I was coming into the scene. So I think as I got to know D Dockett over Twitter, those are some of the things that you were seeing back in the time.
Someone that did not follow me prior to that would have probably been pretty confused about what was going on. So I can imagine that. Yes. I'll have to dig up some of that stuff. The article would really help, because she did a really good job of phrasing it on both ends. 'Cause I'm not sure. I don't think she interviewed Darnell, but she did go through and find his tweets, and she did correctly sort of set up the situation of how I would have gotten his mistaken tweets, as I poorly did talking about them here on this podcast. But yeah, I'll have to dig those up, and I'll tweet those. Maybe if I can find that this evening, I'll share that, and something lighthearted that people could connect with as we're all cooped up in our homes.
I'll say, yeah, definitely a good laugh. It's something we could all use at this point.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time, sir. This has been fun. This is almost like we were sitting next to each other at an Arch Madness game, just watching our teams lose, and then we had nothing else to talk about or something. So good stuff, man.
This was a blast. I appreciate you having me on. I've followed the podcast. I caught your interview with Luke Martin.
Yes.
One of my favorite people. So glad that he's a Sycamore.
He is the best. He is the absolute best.
I wish, as I see the work that he's doing, I really wish he would have been around back in 2012 and 2013, that his videography and just his eye for the content he creates, we could have done some pretty special things, but really glad that he's on our team now.
I don't know how he has enough hours in the day to do everything that he does. That was the running joke I had with him. Was like, I remember my last year at the Valley, they were coming in for, I believe it was I'm not sure if it was media day or if it was my last in the summer, that there's a meeting for the sports information directors, marketing directors, and those folks. And we'd always invite digital media folks and whatnot as well. And I remember Luke coming in, we were at Ballpark Village, and I was sitting next to Ace, and Luke goes, all right, well, I got to go upstairs and get to the room and get editing on something. I go, you're working now? Like, I was like, it was the summer, so that lets me know it was a summer meeting. Well, it turns out he shot an interview with a baseball player that was in town to see playing the Cardinals, and I can't remember if it was Sean Manaea, I believe, actually.
Yeah.
I think there's a game, and he got an interview with Sean Manaea at Busch Stadium, and he was going to go edit. I was just like, even in the summer, dude, like, do you ever not work? And he is a machine. I bumped into him at Arch Madness too, and it was just like, Luke. So yeah, he has done wonders for Indiana State. If there were 10 other Luke Martins in the world to be at other Valley schools, there'd be great content all across the league. But he is definitely one of a kind.
Yeah, we're definitely glad to call him a Sycamore. That's for sure.
Yeah. So if his ears aren't burning, they probably are now. So yeah, we don't want to make this the Luke. He's already had his own episode, so I don't want to give him too much of your shine. He's been on before, so.
Gotcha. Well, I'll be glad to share some time with him. So
yeah. Well, thanks again, man. I appreciate your time, sir.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.